What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome into the Auburn Blitz podcast. I'm glad you joined us this morning to get your day started, and we got a lot to talk about this morning. We're going to talk about portal additions, possibly SEC basketball opener, but obviously yesterday we were all rocked by some more tragedy in this country as we head into 2025 with what happened in New Orleans and having to postpone the Sugar Bowl because of an idiot that decided to kill 15 people and hurt plenty of others. And now they're trying to figure out who else is involved and if New Orleans safe. They're going to plan to play the game at 3:00 today. But we'll talk about college football playoffs results from yesterday. But that's kind of where we start. I hate to start with something negative for 2025, but just another idiot extremist deciding to take people out.
Well, we've all been to New Orleans. We've all been on that strip. We've seen how dangerous it can be, not only if a vehicle's not riding down through there, just dealing with the humans that are in that part of the country will make you question life. I've been there on New Year's Eve from time to time, and it has been sketchy at best. And when you let the barrier down, or at least they're able to get around the barrier, I don't know how you fix it. I don't. I mean, when you have that many people and one condensed location, I'll say what my wife said yesterday. Thank the Lord it wasn't at 12:15 and it was at 3:15, because you know how many kids would have actually been part of this melee if you were right there at the midnight time frame. At least when you get into the 3:00 hour, the kids are up. At least you would hope they would be by 3:15. Like nothing's good about it. You can't spin it in a positive direction one way or another, but that was one way that she took it yesterday, and I agree with her. It was terrible to watch. It's easy to go and access the video now. You can pull it up on Twitter. You can pull it up wherever you want. They're not showing it on television, which was really good to see, but just terrifying watching that truck come through there, and to think about, the times that so many of us that grew up in the South have been on that street in a really, really bad position. So Sugar Bowl delayed. I don't know how much of a change that will be for the game. Would you question going into the game today, Brett? Do you sense that there's some other things that are coming? Do you think there were more planned, or was it just this one incident? It's hard to say. I don't think any of us have a direct answer to that.
Yeah, I don't think it was just a lone wolf by any stretch. I think it's pretty much confirmed they found some other things in New Orleans yesterday. They obviously the guy's house in Houston. They I guess evacuated surrounding houses around him. There were other people in his house that now there's video of people coming out and I guess with their hands up, being told that they're under arrest. But I hate it, man. It just, this is what happens. I'm not going to turn into a political deal, and people may say that he's splitting hairs and he was an American citizen and all that. I heard somebody say last night, so there's a difference between being an American and being a U.S. citizen. You can be a U.S. citizen legally, but you can hate America. And obviously, whatever that guy did last night or night before, that guy hates America. So that's where we've all got to quit spinning things. I don't care that he was in the military. I don't care that, whoever this guy is that blew this Cybertruck up in front of the hotel in Vegas. I thought that description was about as spot on. You can be a U.S. citizen, but you can still hate America and hate Western ideals, and they're not going to be the only ones. And I think when you've been sympathetic is a word that I want to use, blind to what we've had coming in the last 4 years, we're going to start to see the repercussions for not doing our due diligence as a country and protecting ourselves. So I hope and pray that anything else doesn't happen today in New Orleans. I hope nothing happens anywhere else. but I'm afraid that this won't be the last of it. And, there's people even saying, should they even play the Sugar Bowl? Should they move the Sugar Bowl out of New Orleans? Well, I hate it for New Orleans because, they want that game there. The fans have come down there to participate in that, and it makes it tough to leave at this point and go to another venue that you're going to have to do the same thing and protect. So, look, these mass gatherings are going to be targets. I think people need to understand that, and you need to understand that when you make preparations to go places. So you can't stop living your life. I think you got to continue on. You can't let them win by scaring you into a cave, but I hate it. Yeah, but the game should kick off at 3:00 today.
Well, very odd that the decision was made unless they sensed weakness on the perimeter there in New Orleans, but to drive all the way from Houston or Texas to New Orleans to do this is really the questionable part of it, because there was 50 spots in between you could stop and have the same issue. Now, are they as packed in as they are on Bourbon Street? Maybe not. Maybe that's the reason that you make this decision, Brett. But New Year's Eve, you probably were somewhere. I was somewhere where there's a ton of people, and if you run a vehicle wild through the crowd, it's going to get the 15 number that we saw, and the other 25 to 30 that seem to be injured. So I don't know what the New Orleans angle to this is. Do you? And let's say this: New Orleans is one of the cities along with Atlanta down south, and you can probably throw Miami in there that host as many events as anywhere. And to host as many events as New Orleans does, and to not have issues like this constantly, tells you what a great job for the most part that they do controlling venues like this, because there's a lot of crazy humans out there, and maybe the stories don't get out on situations that happen as often as they probably could. But let's not kid ourselves, Brett. Every time I'm in a crowd like that, I'm worried. I've gotten to the point now that I'm of the age that even when I go to a ball game, I'm worried something could happen, because all it does is take one lone crazy nut to come in shooting up something or doing what. And how do you administer that? There's a lot of blame that can go around, I'm sure. And I appreciate Kennedy coming out yesterday and saying, look, people's got to do their job, and we've got to give them time to do their job. But the thing that we need to do as a country is to be honest with everyone once the determinations are made on exactly what went down, is come out and tell everybody what happened, and let's see if we can fix it for next time. But Brett, I don't know how you fix this. I really don't. My kids were asking me yesterday, I mean, what could they have done? Should we be worried about going places now? And the answer is simply,
you can't fix something where somebody wants to kill themselves. I mean, when you have a person that wants to kill themselves and they're willing to kill themselves to take others out, you can't defend that. What you do. You can't do anything with that. So it's all, again, there's nothing more that they could have done, I don't think, to prevent that. Look, we don't know how many threats get thwarted every day. That's probably a number that would be astounding to everybody. But I think what we got to do as a press and as a media, because I saw several headlines, like the headline in Las Vegas, 1 killed in Cybertruck explosion. That's a deceptive headline. You're intentionally deceiving and trying to hide. You're not telling the truth. You're not saying person blows up truck in front of hotel, in attack. Tell the truth. Just tell us what really happened. Don't try to cover this up and say, lone truck explosion in front of hotel takes out one person. That's not being, that's not being truthful to the people that are in this country. And that's why a lot of people don't have trust in the media. It's because of stuff like that. So if we'll just start telling the story, whether we like it or not, whether we like the narrative that comes out, see, that's what happens when you have headlines like that. It's intentional cover up for whatever reason. I don't know if you don't want to you want to prevent panic. I don't know what it is, but you have an ulterior motive when you do stuff like that. Some editor had to approve that headline to go out in that newspaper. Well, it's not telling the truth, and they know it. So until we get back to telling the truth across the board on our media outlets, then you're going to continue to have this kind of stuff.
Well, the media outlets are a joke now. I mean, I think they've killed themselves. There's too many opportunities to go out there and pull in other ways of communicating the real story, and people are choosing those by a wide margin in comparison to the way you and I grew up, where you had to go to CBS and ABC and the other news networks to get your nightly news, or CNN once that came on air and you had 24/7 news coverage. Those were the places that we went and got our news. Not anymore. I mean, I get all of my news from Twitter, what I read there, or text threads with individuals that you and I are on a lot of them together, but that's how my news comes through. And it's storylines that are passed along well before I'd ever turn on a nightly news network to give me their angle to it. And so it's far done with by the time I go and watch anything like that. And so it's a different day and age, but the good thing about it is exposure. So when you tell a lie and everyone with good common sense can read into the lie that you're telling, then after you've been told that lie over and over again, it becomes a joke. And I think a lot of what's going on in this country right now is a total joke. And you watch CNN. I don't know if you watched any of CNN with their news coverage on New Year's Eve, but they're joking amongst each other on how big of a joke they are. That's how far it's gone. When they're able to go on camera now and throw the jokes that were out there the last hour leading into the New Year's, I was thinking to myself, where have we gone? We have gotten so far crazy left that even the crazy left's picking at each other on how far they've let it go. And once that happens, Brett, and there's enough people out there with good common sense to communicate the real story to you, then you're done with. And so I think that we've almost reached that change over here in this country, and I think it's around the world. It's not only here. There's a lot of good people around this world that have had enough of being pushed into a corner and being told the way that they need to think about certain topics. And I get a feel that the last couple of years they took it to the brink, and a lot of us just said, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I won't be listening to you anymore. You're unwilling to tell the truth. And
people have lost their jobs. They've lost their jobs.
There's no more money to because the ratings are so low that nobody's watching it. And once that's the case, then you have enough people that really are in it to make money. The media executives that are in it to make money. Once they've decided that, no, I'm not going to keep spinning this in that left-leaning direction anymore, because enough people have already read through that, then there's not money there to be had on the other end. And so it does lose a lot of people their jobs. And you are able to go on news networks and joke about yourself. I was taken back by that a little bit New Year's Eve. I don't know about you, but I was really surprised at how open the left has become.
If they want to start
getting able to talk about
if they want to start gaining some credibility back, they'll start doing that. They'll start saying, okay, that was probably a little bit over the top. And the way you get people to come back to you, say that's their way of admitting they were probably a little extreme with their viewpoints. So they got to start reining something in, because like you said, the viewership and the ratings are so horrendous that they can't even argue with that now. When the people start turning you off and they don't want to watch you, then I don't know who you're talking to as a talking head anymore. I guess you can just look in the mirror and talk to yourself, because at that point, that's the only person that believes what you're saying. We'll move on from that. I hate it. Hopefully everything will go over okay today in the Sugar Bowl. We'll see a good football game between Georgia and Notre Dame. All right, let's go over to the games yesterday before we talk about Auburn in the portal. Some other visitors going to be possibly coming in Now that the portal window is closed for Auburn, doesn't mean that they can't have players come in and visit, and still Auburn can get players out of the portal. Go back to New Year's Eve, Boise and Penn State. I think it's kind of what we thought. We thought that game probably would get away from Boise. I thought Ashton Jeanty did all he could do. But Penn State, I think, may be a little bit better than everybody thought they were. So I'm going to give a little credit to Penn State, and I'm not going to bash Boise because I think Boise's got a pretty good football team. I don't think their quarterback was up to par. I thought their lines of scrimmage did okay at times. But for the most part, Penn State is just a better football team. And sometimes you just got to tip your hat. So I'm not going to sit on here and say that Boise didn't deserve to be in the playoff, because if you were looking at that, then you would say, well, Oregon probably didn't deserve to be in it either because they got the hell beat out of them yesterday, and they were the number one team in the country. So, but Penn State, pretty good football team is what we're finding out.
They are. I said it the last couple of weeks that I think the further we get removed from this era of football, the more that we're going to look back and realize that Franklin's one of the best coaches in the country. What he did at Vandy may never be done again, even though that if you watch Vandy right now, you think they may go on a run like they had with him. But I'd be surprised if they got to the level that Franklin took them. And you got to remember, Penn State was dead in the water a decade ago. They had as bad a media coverage as you could possibly ask for. The death knell was asked by many out there to go to this Penn State football program by the way that Paterno and Sandusky and the rest of that crew handled all that went on during that stretch. But Franklin has turned them into a consistent winner, Brett. Year in and year out, they're going to get double-digit wins. And they're going to be competitive in the second best league in the country, year in and year out. And this may be their best squad. It's a very well-coached squad. It's really good defensive group to watch play. And if you're one-dimensional, like I mentioned with Boise, and you've only got one hat to hang on, and that was the running game, they'll figure out a really good team like this will expose you. And I thought that's what happened. And Penn State can win this thing. Now, they'll win it ugly if they do, but if you're a Penn State fan, you don't care how you win it. And we've had our chance against Penn State a couple of times, and they blew our doors off the last time we brought them to Jordan-Hare. So there's no part of me that's going to go, oh my. But hey, think back to KLS though. Auburn goes in the portal and pulls KLS away from Penn State. Now Penn State's right here in the semifinal. Like, you got to be thinking, if you're that young man, you got to be thinking, boy, I'm not sure this transfer portal was all that it was cracked up to be, even though I played well and my numbers are really good and I'm probably helped my draft stock. I could be a fourth-year guy there on this Penn State squad that's so good, and I could be a key contributor because he was while he was there. So, he's questioning his decision, or at least I would be, Brett.
Yeah, I mean, that was a massive getting KLS from Penn State. I mean, off that team. That we did it. Glad we did it. Not that it helped us very much. It helped him. I mean, he still had great numbers, but he's probably going, man, I could be in the semifinals of the playoffs if I'd have just stayed at Penn State. But Penn State, good football team. We'll move on to yesterday, Texas, Arizona State. That game looked like it was going to be the worst of all. And if you'll remember Saturday, Randy, I thought Arizona State would play them tough. Now, after a quarter, I was going, maybe this is true that a lot of people thought that they were outmatched, but they finally got their legs under them and they came back and they had a chance to win that game. And, I think one of the calls in the game is getting a lot of the attention. And, the game was good at the end. Texas almost blew it, but they held on. But at the end of the day, that targeting call or the lack of targeting, I just take the rule out. I mean, seriously, if you show that video at a referee clinic and you ask everybody in the room to grade that, whether they think that's either A, targeting, or B, not, I would say 99% of the people in the room, if not 100, would say that would have been a targeting foul. And they go back and look at it, and then they come back and say it wasn't. So I don't know what the rule is anymore. I don't know that I ever did. But I think everybody I've seen that watched it said that was targeting. So
I think it's textbook. Here, I'll play devil's advocate just because somebody needs to. You know, the problem for him is, Brett, he didn't leap. He didn't leap at the headgear. He stayed on a direct plane, and his direct plane led directly to helmet. Right. And, you know, the problem is with the rule the way that it is, if you don't leap or try to, you know, throw your body to helmet, you almost can't tackle with your helmet anymore. You know, I don't know how you teach tackling with the helmet if that's a targeting foul, because when you watch the defender, he never got above a certain height, Brett. He never extended up. He never came down. He just went directly in, and it was helmet to helmet, and it should have been called a targeting. I'm not questioning that at all. But what I'm saying is, what do you do?
The launching part, what you're saying.
He didn't launch. He didn't launch at all. Go back and watch it. He went directly the way that you're taught. The way all of us were taught was to take your headgear to their chest and don't veer from it and run through it. Now I just don't think you can tackle your headgear. I think you got to take your shoulder pads to the chest and run through it. Because if you take your headgear to the chest,
apparently you can still tackle your headgear because it wasn't targeted.
Well, it should have been, though. And I think you're right. I think if 99% of the people out there would agree that it's targeting, but I'm trying to say that when you watched it, it wasn't egregious. It wasn't what you and I grew up with people really targeting one another, because he didn't really jump or leap to get a headgear to somewhere that wasn't a natural spot for him. He just went right through him, and it happened to be the headgear that he went through. And it should have been a targeting. I agree, but I don't know how you teach it. The only way that I can think you can teach it is to take that headgear away from tackles altogether. And as fast as everyone's moving, Brett, it's real easy for me and you sitting in this chair right here to say you got plenty of time to move your head or make a decision. Dude, you don't know where these athletes are going. You're just lucky if you can get your hands on them from time to time. And to have it timed exactly right where your headgear never reaches someone else's headgear when it's at the same angle, that's almost impossible. But, you know, I'm not arguing with you. I 100% agree with you, but I don't know how you rule that thing. And I don't know how I'd hate to be the one to try to coach the way to change that up, because it's completely different than anything you and I were ever taught.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, I think everybody looked at it and said, I think they just need to simplify the daggum rule. I mean, all this, well, did he launch? And, you know, was it side? Just if you hit with the crown of your headgear in the head, it's targeting. I've seen targeting called where the headgear hits in the chest because it's called launching, and but just you can't. Again, it goes back to replay. It goes back to everything that we've talked about on this show 100 times. We want to overanalyze and review everything down to the little, you know, micro inch of whatever. And you can't do that. This is sports where things happen in real time. And the whole gist of the rule is to take out intentional harm to a defenseless player. I think when you have that, common sense needs to kick in and say, okay, that guy he was coming up to try to make a play, and it's the only way he could have made the play. And so it's hard to throw a flag on a guy that's trying to just make a play, okay, rather than somebody that's coming up and you can tell he's intentionally trying to inflict harm on somebody. All right, Ohio State and Oregon. The one that we thought was going to be the best game ended up being the worst because Oregon didn't show up at all in the first half. Ohio State, you and I talked about it after the way they played Tennessee. I told you, I said, this looks like a different Ohio State team now. The Michigan game was embarrassing to them. I think Ryan Day felt immense pressure The team Ohio State has the best roster in college football. They've spent the most money of anybody in college football, but they weren't getting the results. And now they're playing like everybody thought they could play. And they look like a machine right now. And they look clearly, we'll have to see Notre Dame, Georgia tonight, but they clearly look like the best team left in the playoffs. And maybe Tennessee didn't play as bad as everybody thought. Maybe that was just Ohio State playing really, really good. And now what they just did to the number one team in the country. But here's Oregon again. Oregon's got to eventually get over the hump at some point in time because everybody's going to start calling them the Buffalo Bills of college football. They can get there, but they can't win it. And that was a horrendous performance in the first half, and you can't dig out of 34-0. I applaud them for scored at the end of the first half and then coming out and having some momentum in the third quarter, but the damage had already been done at that point.
It had. I mean, they righted the ship, so it wasn't as bad as it could look. But here's my takeaway. Michigan. How well is Michigan coached? Because Michigan had, 5 starters on defense out because of the transfer portal? Michigan took it to Alabama, buddy. Alabama had no answers for Michigan. So my point with Michigan and Ohio State is Michigan really got a lot better as the season moved on. And they had a true freshman running back that I think had 8 yards rushing all season long that went for over 100 against. So they're the only team that's played this Ohio State team well lately. Nobody else has been able to stay on the field. And I don't watch a team. Georgia's talented enough, Brett. If Stockton can play really good football, they can beat Ohio State. We all know that. But the SEC, I don't think Texas can. I really don't. I don't think Texas can stay in the football game with Ohio State from what I've seen right now. So Georgia's
playing like this.
Georgia's kind of the outlier. I keep saying with the SEC, Alabama and Georgia, we've all been propped up here in the SEC with Alabama and Georgia over the last decade plus. We all look like we're the strongest and best conference by far and away because we win all the championships. But in reality, it's the same 2 teams winning all the championships and playing them. The rest of us have been mediocre at best. And when we've matched up with teams outside of the SEC, what we're getting in this bowl season, we've been getting for a long time. If you take those 2 teams away, Brett, and we can have an odd and end year, a 2010 and 2013, we can do that. And there's other teams like Auburn that have been able to do that. But the only ones that have been able to sustain is Alabama and Georgia for a long time. And So the SEC, here's my takeaway from this bowl. We don't need to be crying as hard as we were leading into this whole setup because we haven't held suit either. And I'm hopeful that Georgia will because we need Georgia to. The SEC doesn't need this bowl season to continue down the path that it's on, Brett, or we're not going to win any arguments moving forward. And we're going to keep a lot of teams, including Auburn, that's got a next to impossible hill to climb every year. When you add that Georgia and Alabama team to them year in and year out, it's an impossible hill to climb. And if you get to 2 or 3 losses, you may not get in with the way the SEC is performing in this bowl. And I tell you what's bringing everybody back to an even is the weather, Brett. We do not deal with cold weather well. The SEC hasn't played well in a cold weather game yet, have we? And if you go indoors, I saw yesterday that Gabriel was asking for all the bowl games to be in a nice conditioned area, and the Penn State and Ohio State of the world's like, no. Y'all have been lucky for a long time where we keep taking to these nice indoor conditions. Y'all can come up here and take that ass whooping like the rest of us can. is what we've seen, Brett. And the NFL has it all the way up until the Super Bowl. And it's been the thing that's leveled the playing field over the years, and it's leveling this year. So, look, I applaud the NCAA here for the change up because we are seeing some Southern teams in some conditions that we haven't seen because the bowl games, for the most part, have been indoor or they've been chosen in areas where it's not really cold outside.
Yeah, there's pro for that and con against that. I want to see the best teams play in the best environment where you don't have external elements that affect the way the game is played. I think, the players play their rear end off and they practice. And but I know the old school guys in NFL especially, that was part of it. If you could get a home playoff game and you get one of those Southern teams to come up there, you can really eliminate some of the discrepancies that you might have between the team that you're playing. So look at Duke Ole Miss today. I mean, we talk about the forgotten bowl game. January 2nd, you play the Gator Bowl. It's got to be a little dejecting for Ole Miss with their where they anticipated they would be, and falling short and losing to Kentucky and losing to Florida, sealing their fate late in the season, relegated them to the Gator Bowl against a Duke team that is 9-3 as well. But the game doesn't really mean anything. But will Ole Miss show up and play well in this game? I don't know. They could get to 10 wins again, but this was not what they were looking for. This was not.
He's gotten them up in the past, the bowl games.
Yeah,
they've won bowl games when the rest of us have gone and laid an egg. Ole Miss will play well in the bowl game. So, hey, you can. I'm one to say a lot of negative stuff toward Lane Kiffin because he's not a personality that I choose to be a leader on anything that I'd be involved in. But tip your hat to him. I mean, Auburn's laid one egg after another in bowl games, and Ole Miss hasn't. That's the last few bowl games that Ole Miss has played in. They've really played well, haven't they, Brett? So you got to give them the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think they'll play well. I think they'll win.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think Duke. I mean, if Ole Miss just comes out and does what they're capable of doing, I think they'll win the lines of scrimmage. And again, I think for Ole Miss that, look, this is not a shot at them by any stretch because we've been in the doldrums, but they hadn't really won anything during this stretch. I mean, they've had some good seasons. They have nothing to show for it from a trophy standpoint. So winning 10 games can be something they can market and continue to build their program and get it to where they want to be. So, all right. Moving into, again, the Sugar Bowl will be tonight, so that'll wrap up the quarterfinals, and we'll have the semifinals set. Now, the one thing I will say about Ohio State and Texas is that Ohio State will have to play Texas in the Cotton Bowl. Don't know that that'll mean a lot or what, but it will kind of semi be a home game for Texas. But the way Ohio State's playing right now, I don't think it matters.
I don't either. I don't think it benefits the northern teams coming to the South. I don't think it benefits the southern teams right now as much as it benefits those northern teams having to go up and play in those cold conditions. So I don't think that'll be an issue at all. I think Ohio State matches them athletically. And so even on an indoor or a setup where you think speed would really maybe lean in Texas's favor, I don't watch Ohio State and think they'll be better athletes on Texas side of the ball. I think money speaks, and Ohio State has spent it well, and they've got the most talented team going in.
All right, real quickly before we get off, guys, again, we appreciate everybody watching and listening every single morning. Some potential visitors for Auburn here in the next day or two for football. Chris Murray, the edge rusher from Sam Houston State, and Clemson edge rusher A.J. Hoffler is anticipated to visit Auburn. We talked about defensive line needing a few more pieces. So, obviously, Auburn's still targeting those guys. And a familiar name, Jeffrey M'ba, who just transferred from Auburn to Purdue, is now looking at visiting and coming back to Auburn. So, I don't know how people feel about that. And I'm not going to sit on here and say that, we don't want him to come back, because sometimes you may go off and find yourself and Now you want to come back and prove it. I don't know, but excuse me. Those are the three names right now that all on the defensive side of the ball that Auburn's looking at bringing in for another visit.
Imba, I thought was a good player for us. I'd love to have him back. It's a day and age where you don't get your feelings hurt and somebody chooses somewhere else and then ends up back to you. If this is what we're dealing with on the transfer portal, which is pretty much putting a new roster together every year. Auburn's been able to hold on a little bit more than others when it comes to basketball, but in football, including basketball and other sports, you can have a totally different new roster the following year, and it can be good, bad, or in between. So I'll take Imba back. I thought he was a really good player, looked the part, looked like an SEC player while he was at Auburn. I think his ceiling's really high.
Oh, yeah.
The other two guys, I have no earthly idea. I do trust our defensive staff to know the pieces that they want to plug into play. And if those are the two that they choose, I got all the confidence in the world that this defensive group that we got is going to put a really good product out there for Auburn next year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we'll follow that and monitor that as that happens and keep you up to date on that. To close out, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow because tomorrow's Friday, and SEC basketball opener on Saturday with Missouri coming in. It's a good basketball team. You know, you look down and in the first 7 basketball games for Auburn in SEC play, nobody has more than 3 losses. So I can say that every time we get ready to talk about a team coming to play Auburn. Everybody's good. Every single SEC team enters SEC play with 10 or more wins. So this Missouri team beat Kansas a few weeks ago when they were number 1 in the country. You better be ready to play. You can't get off to a start like Auburn got off to this past week against Monmouth. And I know it was the opponent. I know I'm not comparing it. I'm not saying we will. I'm just saying you can't take 10, 11 minutes off in an SEC game. You'll lose. You'll get in a hole and you'll put yourself in a situation where you can't fight out of it. So Missouri is a formidable opponent, but Auburn should handle business Saturday when they come in.
They got to take care of all teams that come into Auburn Arena this year. This is going to be a season where there's 2 or 3 other teams that I think could get to that 13, 14, 15 win barrier. I think that there are some teams that are that good in SEC play this year. Of course, Auburn being one of them. Couldn't ask for more than we've gotten leading into SEC play. I think we'll have to ramp it up on the defensive side. I think you'll see some extended minutes down in the post. The thing you notice with Missouri, if Missouri's able to beat a Kansas team, you know how good Kansas is down in the post. So Auburn will need to be strong and durable, and I think we got all the pieces in play to be able to do that. But I think defense is going to win these games. Yeah, it's going to be nice to shoot the ball well from the perimeter and hopefully hold on to that 40% plus 3-point shooting that Auburn's done so far this year. But going to have to ramp the defense back up and hope some of these younger guys are ready to play in what's going to be a grueling SEC schedule as good as the SEC is in basketball this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So looking forward to that. We'll talk some more about that later on. Real quick, comments have been coming in. Justin said Under Armour game today at 3 along with the Sugar Bowl. So you'll get to see some of Auburn's signees, Blake Woodby, Jared Smith, Khalil Ellis, and Anquan Fagans playing in that. Glenn comes back and says he hopes the first Auburn-Texas game is at Auburn. I remember going to that 1987 Auburn-Texas game when they had Eric Metcalf. Glenn, I know you're a big Texas fan. Auburn beat them 31-3 that day. I enjoyed that game. I was a kid, but I'll remember that one pretty well as Auburn did a really good job that day. But, yeah, it will be cool when Texas makes their first trip back to Auburn as a member of the SEC. All right. Justin said, is that the game Craig got lost at, Randy?
He did. He got lost.
I think it is.
He was a whole 7 years old when he was lost, and won't ever forget it. They said Greg Lee over the loudspeaker, and I looked at my dad and said that I don't know about you, but I know Craig, and they just got the name wrong. He's lost down there somewhere, and he was smart enough to go and ask somebody to say his name over the loudspeaker. So we did get him back. He's been with us ever since.
He wasn't permanently lost, just temporarily.
No, just for a few years.
That's right. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Again, a lot of great comments coming in this morning. We appreciate it. Again, we hope and pray that there won't be anything else that happens in New Orleans. They'll get a chance to play that game today, and we'll move on. But man, I tell you, a lot of hate in this world, a lot of idiots in this world. It's the only thing I can tell you. Go find some help, man, if you need some help. There's plenty of people that'll help you. Don't take your animosity, but these obviously some of these people, that's their intent. They want to take as many people out because they obviously have a pretty crappy life, and they want everybody else to have one too. So they want to inflict harm and pain on other people. So I'll just leave it at that. Sensa Green is our proud sponsor here on the Auburn Blitz podcast. We couldn't do it without them. We appreciate Sensa Green, the leading carrier dealer here in the state of Alabama. So for air that's cool and clean, call on Sensa Green. We'll also be at Bunkers today, Randy, not officially. You and I will be going over there to a meeting and meeting some people over there. So looking forward to lunch over there at Bunkers today in downtown Auburn. Great place. We're going to have several more live shows from Bunkers, so we're excited about that. And I know you're back in action down in Davil, Alabama today.
Yeah, got most everyone in down here. We're wide open with Sign Source. Got a merger that I'm trying to finish up by the end of this week with a sign company over in the Auburn market that will be pulling in under our Sign Source division, and very, very good business over there. So excited to get into that Auburn market. Got another building over there that we're also trying to finish the contract up on. So we're going to grow over in the Auburn, Opelika area as this 2025 year moves on. But from signage, from start to finish, we can help you. That's all digital signs to just your everyday Coroplast signs, vehicle wraps, 256-825-0197, screen printing, DTF, embroidery, promotional products, any brand that you're looking for, Lee Apparel can get for you. We've been in business 20 plus years. Got people that have been in the business for over 40 years down here as part of our team. So Lee Apparel, from custom apparel and custom embroidery and custom screen printing, give us a call, 256-825-0197.
Well, Happy New Year to everybody. We really appreciate all of you watching and listening. Hope you had plenty of black eyed peas and turnip greens yesterday for your New Year's resolution meal. And we hope all of you have a great start to 2025 and a lot of success. But again, we want to thank you for joining us each and every morning. Again, Auburn Blitz will be back on the air at 12 today. So make sure you tune them in. Jim and Andy will be on for that. So have a great day, everybody.